The WNBA is giving out huge warnings to fans when they attend these games.
The WNBA finds itself in the middle of another storm, and this one might be its most embarrassing yet. Reports are spreading that the league's front office has officially confirmed a police investigation into alleged racist behavior by fans during a recent game. What started as whispers online has now turned into a full-blown controversy, with social media demanding answers and players calling for accountability.
We know the WNBA had made it their focus from the start of the season, and it looked like till the end of the season to make sure the fans are safe and to make sure their players are not targeted. We've seen actions like this that was issued early in the beginning of the season, dealing with the Indiana Fever in that very first game playing the Chicago Sky when they issued this warning right here. Now, how could we forget this whole saga right here? That was released by the WNBA going way back in May.
The timing couldn't be worse for a league that's been fighting to clean up its image, especially after months of fan clashes, questionable officiating, and locker room drama. Now, the focus isn't just on what happened courtside, but how deep the issue goes inside the WNBA itself. Were these fans simply unruly, or was there something far more disturbing going on? And more importantly, how will the league handle the fallout when the truth finally comes to light?
The WNBA today issued the following statement regarding the Chicago Sky at the Fever game on May 17, 2025. We have investigated the report of racist fan behavior in the vicinity of the court during the May 17, 2025 Chicago Sky game at the Indiana Fever.
It all started on what was supposed to be a routine WNBA matchup. The Indiana Fever were hosting yet another packed home game, and the atmosphere was electric. But somewhere between the cheers, the rival chants, and the competitive energy, something ugly happened that no one expected. Fans sitting near the courtside section reportedly began shouting racially charged remarks at players during the game, creating chaos that quickly spread through the arena.
Now, based on the information gathered on that date, including from relevant fans, team, and arena staff, and audio reviewed, we have not sustained it. The WNBA is committed to fostering a safe, exclusive environment for everyone and will continue to be vigilant and enforcing that conduct.
Witnesses say the confrontation escalated so fast that several security guards had to step in to calm the situation before it got completely out of control. Cameras from fans in the stands captured parts of the moment, and what those clips revealed was disturbing, enough to catch the attention of both the league office and local authorities. Within hours, those short clips went viral online. Hashtags calling out the WNBA for failing to protect its players started trending across social media platforms.
Now, that was released right after Angel Reese swore up and down. Basically, people was calling her the N-word, allegedly, in so many words.
Players from different teams began sharing their own experiences of being heckled or targeted during games. What made this incident stand out wasn't just the words being used, but the complete lack of immediate response from arena officials that night. For a league that's been vocal about inclusivity and equality, the silence in that moment spoke volumes. By the following morning, the front office had no choice but to step in. A formal statement was released confirming that law enforcement had been notified and that an internal investigation was underway. They promised full cooperation with the authorities and reassured fans that the league had zero tolerance for hate speech or discrimination of any kind. Yet for many, that statement only raised more questions than answers.
This right here should have been talked about hellas, but instead everybody missed it. And it goes on to say, legendary performance from myself. Let's read this warning card. So they issue warning cards, bro. It stated, you are being issued a warning that the comments and gestures and or behaviors that you have directed at players, coaches, game officials, and or other spectators constitute excessive verbal abuse and or in violation of the NBA, WNBA/fan code of conduct. This is the first and only warning that you will receive. If after receiving this warning you verbally abuse any player, coach, game official, or spectator, you will be immediately ejected from the arena.
Why did it take a public outcry before the league acknowledged what happened? Why weren't those responsible removed instantly from the arena? Behind the scenes, reports suggested that this wasn't the first time similar complaints had surfaced. Some sources even hinted that league officials were warned earlier in the season about rising tensions between certain fan sections and players, but nothing concrete had been done. That revelation fueled even more outrage as people began accusing the WNBA of trying to protect its public image rather than its players.
But yeah, man, so this card was allegedly issued to a fan. I don't know which game this was. Mike said they are not giving out yellow cards at the WNBA game. They definitely are, but it looked like they giving him a card because something or whatever you said was something. Somebody said, can someone please start policing the refs? They keep saying they want to be as equal as NBA or other sports teams, but it's stuff like this that shows they ain't ready. They definitely ain't ready, man. This is WNBA. Next fans will be paying fines.
The front office found itself in a corner, forced to balance damage control with growing pressure from both fans and media outlets, demanding transparency. As more details came out, it became clear that the situation had spiraled beyond a single fan incident. This was now a question of integrity, accountability, and the league's true values. The police investigation wasn't just about identifying the fans involved. It was about exposing whether the WNBA had ignored warning signs all along. And as insiders started leaking new information, the public realized this controversy was far from over. The storm had only just begun, and the next revelation would send shockwaves through the league.
Supposedly, word on the street is the only players that had to play fines allegedly was the white players of the WNBA, such as Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, and one more player. I believe maybe Sabrina or Brianna. But supposedly, they said only the white players had to pay.
When the first official statement from the WNBA finally dropped, it was short, polished, and distant. The kind of corporate language fans had grown tired of hearing. The league condemned inappropriate fan behavior and promised to cooperate fully with law enforcement. But there was no mention of accountability or urgency. That tone rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Players were already speaking out, fans were demanding answers, and yet the league seemed more concerned about optics than the real issue. Social media erupted almost immediately. Hashtags like #DoBetterWNBA and #ProtectThePlayers trended within hours, forcing the front office to realize this wasn't going to fade quietly. Caitlin Clark's name appeared repeatedly in conversations about the incident, not because she was directly involved, but because her massive influence brought more attention to the issue. Every time something controversial happens around the Fever, Clark's global fan base amplifies it to millions. And this time, it worked. Journalists started digging deeper into past incidents that had been brushed off, uncovering a disturbing pattern of selective enforcement. Some fans had been escorted out for minor heckling, while others accused of far worse behavior were allowed to stay. The double standard was glaring, and it reignited debates about bias, race, and favoritism within the league. Then came the question of leadership. All eyes turned to Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, who had already been under pressure from critics accusing her of inconsistent decisions. Her refusal to directly address the situation only added fuel to the fire. Fans flooded WNBA social media pages with angry comments demanding her resignation. Reporters began speculating whether the league was deliberately minimizing the event to protect upcoming sponsorship deals or avoid negative headlines before the next season. In an ironic twist, the attempt to maintain control only made things worse. Transparency had become the only way out. Even players from rival teams joined the conversation. Some defended the WNBA's right to conduct an internal review before making public statements, while others openly criticized the lack of immediate response. One veteran player posted, "We talk about equality, but we can't even guarantee safety on our own courts." That quote went viral overnight, becoming a rallying cry for fans who felt unheard. Former players chimed in too, reminding the public that fan abuse isn't new, it's just finally being filmed by the end of the week. ESPN, Bleacher Report, and major sports outlets had picked up the story, and the pressure on the league became unbearable. The WNBA could no longer control the narrative. What started as a single fan incident was now a league-wide scandal about leadership failure, selective discipline, and the cost of silence. Every move from this point forward would either rebuild the league's reputation or destroy it completely. The next step would determine whether the WNBA truly stood for what it claimed to represent. Once police involvement was officially confirmed, the atmosphere around the WNBA changed overnight. What began as a quiet internal probe suddenly became a full-fledged criminal investigation, and every word, every move, and every press release from the league was now under a microscope. Local law enforcement in Indianapolis confirmed that they had been in contact with both the Indiana Fever Organization and WNBA officials to review game footage, interview witnesses, and identify the fans responsible for the alleged racial harassment. That confirmation sent shockwaves through the sports community. The league had never faced something this serious, and the fact that the police were now involved meant the matter had crossed beyond sports. It was now about law, ethics, and accountability. The investigation's timing couldn't have been worse. The WNBA had just wrapped its most-watched season in years. Riding the wave of Caitlin Clark's popularity and renewed public attention, sponsors were lining up, TV ratings were finally recovering, and the league was celebrating a rare moment of mainstream relevance. But this scandal threatened to destroy that progress overnight. Analysts began openly questioning whether the front office had known about similar issues in the past and failed to act. It wasn't just about one group of fans, it was about what the league might have ignored to protect its image. Police sources hinted that the incident might have been more complex than initially reported. While early statements focused on a few fans using racial slurs, new information suggested that the confrontation involved security officers and possibly even off-duty personnel assigned to the arena. That revelation made everything worse. If those in charge of maintaining order were involved or complicit, the league's entire system of fan regulation could come crashing down. As reporters chased leads, social media exploded with theories and leaked screenshots claiming that similar behavior had been tolerated at previous games. The word cover-up started circulating, and for the WNBA, that was a nightmare scenario. Kathy Engelbert and her communications team scrambled to get ahead of the narrative. They arranged emergency meetings with arena management, legal advisors, and team owners to discuss next steps. Insiders claimed that the commissioner was furious that the issue had reached law enforcement before the league could contain it. But once the investigation became public record, there was no turning back. Transparency was no longer optional. The WNBA was forced to share updates it had previously kept private, including footage, reviews, and correspondence. Between league officials and local police, the public reaction was immediate and fierce. Some fans applauded the league for finally addressing a problem long swept under the rug, while others accused them of acting only because they got caught. Either way, the damage was done. The investigation was now driving headlines, and the question shifted from what happened to who's responsible. What the authorities uncovered next would either clear the air or confirm the league's biggest scandal yet. Behind closed doors, the WNBA front office was in full panic mode. Sources from within the league described a scene of pure chaos: late-night calls, emergency briefings, and a commissioner visibly shaken by the speed at which things had spiraled out of control. According to insiders, the league's communications department had been instructed to keep public statements vague, while executives scrambled to determine how much information had already leaked. It was clear the WNBA wasn't just worried about the fans under investigation, they were terrified of what an internal paper trail might reveal about how long the issue had been ignored. Emails between arena officials and league representatives reportedly showed that complaints about verbal abuse from fans had surfaced multiple times during the season. In several cases, security staff were allegedly told to monitor the situation rather than eject the offenders to avoid drawing attention. Those words alone enraged players when they surfaced through anonymous leaks. One player, speaking off record, said the culture of silence had been normalized. We were told to stay focused and not let it get to us. But when it keeps happening, you start to feel like they just don't care. That quote spread quickly online, fueling the perception that the WNBA cared more about image than integrity. Multiple journalists began publishing investigative pieces about inconsistencies in how the league handled disciplinary matters. Some noted that smaller market teams received harsher penalties for fan misconduct, while high-profile matchups seemed to get more lenient treatment. Others revealed that several players had personally filed complaints with the league about abusive remarks from the stands, complaints that mysteriously disappeared from official records. As the stories multiplied, fans began connecting the dots and accusing the front office of running damage control instead of enforcing their own code of conduct. Kathy Engelbert reportedly held a tense meeting with her senior staff where frustration boiled over. One source said the commissioner slammed a report on the table and demanded to know who had leaked internal emails to the press. Another insider described the mood as desperate, with staffers fearing both professional fallout and personal blame. The internal pressure was compounded by growing demands from the players' union, which wanted transparency and accountability for how the situation had been handled. The union president released a statement calling for an independent review of the WNBA's fan policies, a move that put even more pressure on Engelbert to respond publicly by this point. The story had escaped the league's control entirely. Every attempt to contain the narrative only made the backlash worse. Sponsors were quietly reaching out to evaluate their partnerships, and television analysts began questioning whether the league could survive another public relations disaster. Inside the WNBA headquarters, one reality became clear: this wasn't just a public relations issue anymore. It was a leadership crisis, and the next decision Engelbert made could either save her position or end her tenure as commissioner altogether. As the investigation deepened, players began speaking out one by one, and their voices carried more weight than any official statement from the league. What started as subtle comments in interviews quickly turned into full-on frustration, expressed across social media. Some stars called out the hypocrisy directly, questioning how a league that champions equality could stay silent when its own athletes were being disrespected in their home arenas. The first to speak boldly was a veteran guard who wrote, "We play for the people, but the league needs to start protecting us from the people too." That post exploded online, getting millions of views and sparking a massive wave of player support. Always careful with her words, addressed the issue during a podcast appearance. She said, "I love this game and the fans, but there's a line. When that line is crossed, there has to be real consequences, not just warnings." Fans praised her honesty, and her comments reignited the debate about inconsistent discipline in the league. Others, like Sophie Cunningham and Araiko Gambawell, echoed similar sentiments, reminding everyone that this wasn't just about one city or one team. It was a league-wide problem that needed leadership to confront it head-on. Behind the scenes, however, tensions were growing. Several players reportedly confronted WNBA officials during a closed-door meeting, demanding that the investigation be handled transparently and that every fan incident moving forward be publicly documented. According to leaks from that meeting, players accused the league of treating their safety as a secondary issue compared to ticket sales and public image. One athlete reportedly said, "If this happened in the NBA, we'd see arrests, not press releases." That quote made headlines and became the defining statement of the controversy. The Players' Union soon issued a formal statement calling for immediate reform of fan conduct policies. They requested mandatory security training, independent oversight of incident reviews, and clear punishments for anyone found guilty of harassment. The message was simple: no more half measures, no more vague promises. The WNBA now had to act. Kathy Engelbert responded days later with a brief press conference, saying the league was listening carefully to its players and reviewing all procedures. But many saw it as damage control rather than a genuine commitment to change. Fans rallied behind the athletes, organizing hashtags and online petitions urging the league to protect its players more aggressively. Even NBA figures began weighing in, with one retired star tweeting, "If the WNBA wants to grow, it needs to start standing up for its players." That external pressure made it impossible for the league to stay silent any longer. The story had transformed from a fan controversy into a cultural flashpoint. It wasn't just about one incident. It was about a league caught between its public ideals and private reality. And as the players' voices grew louder, the front office realized that this wasn't just a scandal to manage, it was a movement they could no longer control. The moment the investigation became public knowledge, the sports media went into a frenzy. Major outlets that usually gave the WNBA light coverage were now dedicating full segments to the controversy. Talk shows debated whether the league had covered up racial incidents for months, while commentators questioned the commissioner's leadership and the integrity of the entire front office. Every detail was dissected, from the timing of the official statements to the body language of Kathy Engelbert. The story had evolved from a single fan altercation into a national conversation about hypocrisy, race, and power in women's sports. Fox Sports, and even independent YouTube commentators started publishing investigative pieces. Some pointed out that this was not an isolated event, but part of a larger trend where the league prioritized public image over accountability. Sports journalists compared the WNBA's slow response to how swiftly the NBA handled similar incidents, making the women's league look reactive and unprepared. Former players appeared on podcasts, revealing they had faced racial heckling in the past, but were told to let it go to protect the brand. Those confessions painted an uncomfortable picture of a league that publicly preached inclusion while privately tolerating toxicity. The public relations nightmare only worsened when leaked emails surfaced, showing internal discussions about suppressing footage from the night of the incident. One PR executive reportedly wrote, "We can't afford another negative headline. Delay any footage release until we know what's in it." That line went viral instantly. Fans and critics alike interpreted it as proof of a cover-up. And within hours, hashtags like #WNBAexposed and #release the footage were trending. The league scrambled to release an edited clip showing a few seconds of the confrontation, but the damage was irreversible. The internet had already made up its mind. Sponsors began to get nervous. Companies like Nike and AT&T, longtime WNBA partners, reportedly reached out privately to seek clarity on the league's internal investigation process. The mere hint of sponsor hesitation sent the front office into overdrive. Engelbert's team began coordinating with crisis management consultants, issuing new statements emphasizing their commitment to diversity and respect. But those words rang hollow to many who had seen the league's repeated inaction. Players weren't staying quiet either. Several reposted fan footage of other harassment incidents, showing that the problem went deeper than the league admitted. Meanwhile, fan reactions split into two camps. Some defended the WNBA, arguing that every sports league faces disruptive fans and that this was being overblown. Others accused the league of hypocrisy, saying it only embraced activism when it benefited their image. The tension reached a boiling point when a televised panel of sports analysts bluntly asked, "If the WNBA can't protect its players from racism, what does it really stand for?" That question echoed everywhere, online, in newsrooms, and inside locker rooms. The WNBA's silence was no longer protection. It had become the loudest confession of all. As the controversy intensified, Commissioner Cathy Engelbert found herself at the center of the storm. Once praised for stabilizing the league's finances and raising visibility, she was now being accused of incompetence, bias, and weak leadership. Every press appearance turned into a verbal minefield. Reporters hammered her with pointed questions. Why didn't the league act sooner? Why was the footage edited? And who authorized the delay in addressing the issue? Engelbert's carefully rehearsed answers only made things worse. Her calm corporate tone came off as detached, even cold. To the public, it seemed like she was protecting the brand instead of the players. Behind the scenes, owners of several WNBA franchises were reportedly frustrated. Some feared long-term damage to sponsorships, while others worried about a potential player strike if the front office didn't clean up its act. Internal emails began circulating among executives discussing contingency options. If the commissioner's leadership became untenable, rumors spread that Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, had quietly reached out to offer crisis management advice. That detail alone fueled headlines suggesting the NBA had to intervene to save its sister league from collapsing under its own mismanagement. For Engelbert, the situation became impossible to control. Every move she made was criticized. When she announced that the league would implement new fan conduct protocols, players accused her of reacting too late. When she promised an independent review, skeptics said it was another PR stunt. The lack of visible emotion or empathy during her statements didn't help either. She was being portrayed as an out-of-touch executive who didn't understand the real experiences of her players. Players and fans began openly calling for her resignation. Viral clips showed fans chanting, "Step down," during games, and banners demanding accountability appeared in arenas. Even some league insiders began quietly admitting that her credibility had been permanently damaged. One unnamed team executive told a reporter, "Cathy lost the locker room." Once the players stop believing in you, there's no recovering from that. As the firestorm grew, Engelbert faced a crucial decision: step aside or fight back. According to insiders, she was determined to weather the storm. She reportedly told her staff, "We will get through this. The truth will come out." But by this point, the narrative had already turned against her. Public perception had hardened. The league wasn't just seen as disorganized, it was viewed as morally compromised. Media commentators began speculating about possible successors, hinting that the WNBA Board of Governors might convene an emergency session if the situation worsened. Meanwhile, Engelbert's attempts to refocus attention on the upcoming draft and off-season plans fell flat. The story had consumed everything. For a league already struggling to earn respect, having its own commissioner viewed as the problem was the ultimate embarrassment. And as calls for her resignation reached a fever pitch. One question remained: was Cathy Engelbert the leader the WNBA needed, or the reason it was falling apart? As weeks passed, the frenzy began to settle, but the scars left behind were impossible to ignore. The WNBA's image had taken a major hit. Trust between the league, the players, and the fans was fractured. The police investigation was still ongoing, but already several fans had been identified and banned indefinitely from attending future games. While that might have seemed like progress, the damage to the league's credibility ran far deeper. People were no longer asking whether the WNBA could recover from this scandal, they were asking whether it ever truly lived up to the values it claimed to stand for. The internal review that Cathy Engelbert had promised was finally completed, and its findings were damning. The report revealed that the league had ignored multiple prior complaints about fan misconduct and failed to enforce consistent disciplinary action across teams. It confirmed what players and insiders had been saying for months. The league had allowed small issues to fester until they exploded into a full-blown crisis. The findings were made public under intense media pressure, and the reaction was swift. Commentators accused the front office of negligence. Players expressed disappointment, but not surprise. And fans flooded social media, demanding sweeping reform. Sponsors who had briefly paused their partnerships returned cautiously, but not without conditions. Several major brands demanded written assurances that the WNBA would overhaul its internal accountability systems and establish a permanent player safety committee. The league complied, announcing a series of new initiatives: stricter fan code of conduct rules, body camera use for security personnel, and mandatory racial sensitivity training for arena staff. While those steps were meant to restore public trust, critics called them performative, claiming the league was trying to patch a broken system instead of rebuilding it from the ground up. Meanwhile, the players took matters into their own hands. In an unprecedented show of unity, several team captains collaborated to create an independent advocacy group focused on athlete safety and fair treatment. They vowed to hold the league accountable and ensure transparency moving forward. That movement gained massive online traction, with fans pledging support and even NBA players voicing solidarity. What started as outrage was transforming into something more powerful, a player-driven push for reform that might change the league forever. As for Engelbert, her future remained uncertain. Despite surviving the initial calls for her resignation, her reputation was permanently bruised. Insiders claimed she was quietly considering stepping down after the season, though no official announcement had been made. The WNBA was entering a crossroads, a test of whether it could grow from the controversy or crumble under the weight of its own mistakes. In the end, this scandal wasn't just about racist fans or one bad night. It became a mirror reflecting the league's deepest flaws. The question now wasn't whether the WNBA could recover. It was whether it could rebuild the trust it had lost, one game, one player, and one fan at a time. The WNBA's handling of the fan investigation will be remembered as a defining moment, one that exposed the league's growing pains, its leadership cracks, and its struggle to live up to its ideals. What began as an isolated incident turned into a national conversation about accountability, transparency, and respect within women's sports. For many players, this wasn't just a wake-up call, it was a demand for change. Fans, too, saw through the polished statements and wanted action, not apologies. Whether Cathy Engelbert remains in charge or not, the WNBA now faces a crossroads. It can either rebuild trust through honesty and reform, or risk losing the very audience it worked so hard to gain. One thing is certain, after this controversy, nothing about how the WNBA operates will ever be viewed the same again.